We are not meant to be self-sufficient, and every single one of us can benefit from having a mentor. Welcome to the Q4 Impact Podcast, where through scripture, story, and conversation, we inspire you to make an impact all the way through the fourth quarter of your life. Today, our podcast conversation is around the topic of mentoring. If you've typically relegated the concept of mentoring to only the workplace and for the purpose of helping those up-and-comers advance in their careers, then we want to broaden your perspective such that when you walk away from listening to today, you hopefully will have a desire to intentionally seek out a mentor or perhaps even become one yourself. We're also thrilled to be joined today by Lyle Wells. Welcome, Lyle.
It's good to be here. Thank you for the invitation.
It is a pleasure. So Lyle, as you will soon hear and learn, has a tremendous passion and extensive experience in the area of mentoring. So Ron, I'm going to ask for you to please give a more formal introduction of Lyle.
Well, great. Lyle is the president of Integris Leadership. He's the lead pastor of First Baptist Church in Franklin, Texas, and the author of the book, The 5-Day Leader, an insanely practical guide to relentless growth, ridiculous routines, and resilient relationships. Lyle's been married to his wife, Rhonda, for 32 years, and together they have 2 adult children. Lyle, it's so obvious that in every area of your life, family, ministry, business, you are about investing in others so that their lives may have the greatest impact for God and for His kingdom. How did you discover this kind of passion and purpose for your life? Ron, I think there might have been 2 unique stakes in the ground. The first was when I was in high school, I never was jealous of the success of others. And I never had that gene. You know, if my best friend got to go out with the prom queen, I was like, good for you, you know, and if somebody else, you know, got a new car, I just never, God always protected me from that spirit of envy or jealousy. And so I think I've always been inspired or excited about other people's success. And then when I became a high school teacher, right when I graduated from college, they gave me all the tough kids. The experienced teachers got to teach advanced placement. I had the kids that had failed every other science class. It was like breakfast club every day with these kids. But what I learned was this, there were good kids inside of there. And they just needed an advocate. They were either stuck, there was a skill set that they didn't have. A lot of them had never grown up with appropriate adults in their life. They just had to learn how to have a conversation with an adult, and they could go get a job and be successful and do well in school. Or they were scared. They had some anxiety or some fear that they just needed somebody to walk along with them to do that. And so it was, I think, in those 2 experiences that I realized maybe I'm uniquely wired to come alongside people and A, equip them, or B, encourage them, or both.
I love that. Now, I know that Ron shared that you're the president of a company called Integris, and you're welcome to share a little bit more about that company. But as I was learning about you in preparation for today, I loved the phrase that you used to describe yourself and the members of your team. And that phrase was that of trusted advisor and chief encourager. So I know that Integris offers executive coaching, but it sounds as the way you and your team come alongside other people really models that spirit of mentoring and just the heart that's behind that. So would you just take a moment and explain how coaching and mentoring are both similar and distinct, and then begin to share how every one of us can benefit from having a mentor in our own lives?
Well, the mission of Integris, our genesis, Susan, comes from Deuteronomy 3:28. The Lord tells Moses, you're not going to lead the nation of Israel into the promised land. And so the Lord tells Moses, commission Joshua, strengthen and encourage him.
So think about it. I mean, I come from a background of seeing kids who were stuck or scared, and then I find that verse, and essentially God is telling Moses, go to Joshua, strengthen him, get him unstuck, and encourage him, make sure he doesn't walk in fear. And so that's the mission of what we do at Integris. We come alongside leaders of any kind of faith-based endeavor, whether it's a church, a faith-based nonprofit, whether it's a kingdom-minded business leader like Ron was for so many years and still is. And our purpose is to simply equip and encourage. I love your question about coaching and mentoring. Coaching, to me, they're very, very similar, a lot of the same processes. In my mind, coaching tends to be more outcomes-based. So it's about performance. So you want to become a better salesman, or you want to become a better evangelist, or I had a call with somebody this morning that wanted to be a better public speaker. So coaching is really modifying behaviors targeted towards a specific outcome. I think mentoring is more comprehensive. Mentoring may be a little more in real time, and mentoring is more about character, because we know we can have all the competencies in the world, right, Ron? But if you don't have the character to support it, that story never ends well. And so mentoring is both the competency and the character, where coaching, in my mind, might be a little more targeted towards a specific outcome.
Thank you for delineating that. So how come each of us can benefit from that mentoring relationship?
Well, here's the thing. The book I want to write is called Stupid Things That Smart People Say, because as I go through life, I just keep seeing these things that we all say, but if we really step back and think about it, there's no wisdom in it. And so here's one: experience is the best teacher. Now, Susan, I'm not going to argue. I think experience is a great teacher, but I would stand up and fight to say I don't think it's the best teacher, because experience, at least you two and I know this, every time I've had to learn from experience, it's cost me pain, usually money, probably relationships, right? I mean, experience is an expensive teacher. So to me, somebody else's experience is the best teacher. I mean, if the three of us, it's late afternoon where I live right now, it's about to be rush hour. If the three of us work together, I don't want to learn that there's a speed trap on the interstate on my way home. Susan, I'd like you to learn that lesson. And then if you would text Ron and I and go, hey, slow down right when you get on the highway, there's a bunch of policemen here. Your experience, I think, is the very best teacher. So I think mentoring should become a lifestyle. When do we stop learning? I loved having mentors in my 20s. And then I got married. I needed mentors to teach me how to be a husband. And then we had children. I needed mentors to teach me how to be a parent. We're not there yet, but our children are grown, and one day I'll be a grandparent. So I'm going to be seeking out mentors like, how do I do this? How do I help my children raise children without being the overbearing guy that nobody wants to come to the house during the holidays? Succession. I mean, one day, it's not in the near future, but one day somebody else will be in line to be the president of Integris. And I'm going to call Ron and say, Ron, you've walked this journey. Tell me what you did right and what you would have done differently in your succession plan. So to me, it's a lifestyle, Susan, that, and again, as people pour into us, and then we pour into the people who walk behind us.
I love that.
So many of us have had individuals in our lives who, because of their influence, could be considered a type of mentor and mentor, I guess I should say. That could include teachers and older family members, friends, coaches, etc. Lyle, you were a college basketball coach years ago, and I'm sure you served as a mentor to many of those players on your teams as you intentionally invested in their lives. Expand on that experience for our listeners.
We used to say relational plus intentional equals transformational. I think, Ron, sometimes we assume, well, I've got a coach, he's going to be a mentor to me, or I've got a boss and she's going to be a great mentor to me. It takes intentionality. We used to joke, that front seat on the bus next to me going to games, a different player had to sit there every single time because I was going to have a conversation with them as a captive audience on that bus. That was precious time. We met with our players twice a week. Once was to talk about basketball and academics. The second meeting was always to talk about life. Ron, you remember being in college. College guys, they're great at starting relationships. They're horrible at ending them. I had to teach guys how to break up with a girl. I didn't have to teach them how to meet a girl, but there's like, they meet her, they buy her flowers, they take her on dates, and then they break up and the guy sends her a text. No, that's not the way a man handles his business. So, but there was always great intentionality to that. And I think that's one of the things that people miss about mentoring, both receiving it and extending it, is there has to be a great intentionality of investing your life into that person with the goal being their success.
So while positive mentoring may have occurred for some of us in our earlier life relationships, the concept of mentoring differs in that we now have the element of choice. Your players, in some ways, didn't really have much of a choice. If the coach wants you to sit in the first row, you're going to sit in the first row. So, Lyle, what advice and encouragement do you have around how to identify and choose a mentor, as well as the importance of having one?
Yeah. I think it's critical. There are 5 voices, Ron, that we all need to speak into our life. We need truth tellers. We need men and women that are going to say things that we may not want to hear or ask us hard questions that we may not want to answer. But you need truth tellers in your life. The second thing you need are teachers, subject matter experts, people who are way better at the things you want to get good at, but they've just traveled the road longer or they've done it better and you can learn from them. The third thing we need are trustees. Trustees are the people that we process our deepest thoughts, our dreams, our fears with, but they're trusted. We know they'll keep it in confidence. My wife is a great truth teller to me. She's a great teacher in many areas for me in my life. My wife, Ron, is not a trustee for me. Now, I share a lot of my heart with my wife, but I've got big dreams. And some of those would scare her to death. She grew up without a lot of stability in her life. And sometimes I want to make our adult life really unstable. So I have other people in my life to process through some of those thoughts. We need tank fillers. We need hype men. Ron, you would know this name very well, Darren Ball. Darren Ball is a dear friend of mine. I never finish a lunch or a phone call with Darren Ball that he doesn't tell me that he loves me. He's the world's greatest hype man, and that's precious to me. And then the last thing we need are Timothys, right? We have to pay it forward. We need somebody else in our life that we're now investing into. So the first thing I would say to your question is, who can play those roles in your life? Now, you're not going to find one person to play all of them, but I would really emphasize finding people who can fit those 5 roles. I think the other thing, Ron, that I would look for is character. Paul says, follow me as I follow Christ. I mean, that's a bold statement. And so I want to be a mentor that's worthy of being followed, that's easy to follow. And I look for mentors that are worthy of being followed and are easy to follow. So character plays a huge part in my selection of who I want my mentors to be.
Thank you for sharing that. I'm going to actually, when we go back and I can listen to this, I'm going to write down each of those 5 types of people. I think that's so well consolidated, and it gives us just that litmus test as we're developing relationships to make sure that we have the individuals in our lives that are necessary. So that first one, or maybe was it the first one you said, the truth tellers? It is the first one. I'm going to piggyback on that because my question for you is this: what posture and response is necessary to receive the greatest benefit from a mentoring relationship? And if we take just that one aspect of truth telling, I can answer that first question with humility. It takes a lot of humility to receive the truth from someone. We don't want to face it. But what general postures and responses are ideal for us to be mentored?
Well, Susan, obviously humility is huge. I think the second thing to go along with that is a hunger to learn and grow. It's the courage to ask the hard questions. When I set up mentoring relationships, I always say, bring your questions to the table. Mentoring, a lot of corporations, Ron's familiar with the corporate world. A lot of corporations, they assign mentors, and it's like, well, this senior executive needs to take this junior executive to lunch once a month. And they get to the restaurant, and it's like, so how's it going? No, I want, if I'm being mentored, I want to come with a list of questions. How did you handle this challenge? Tell me the 2 most important characteristics that have made you a successful husband. Tell me your biggest mistake. What regrets do you have in your 50s that I need to know about so I don't make those same mistakes because I'm in my 30s? So I think it's humility and hunger. And then if I'm doing the mentoring, I come with a lot of questions, and I really challenge them because, the better question always leads to the better answer. At Caesarea Philippi, Jesus says, "Who do people say that I am?" And he gets all these popcorn responses. And then he looks at Peter and he says, "But what about you? Who do you say I am?" And Peter says, "You're the Messiah. You're the Son of the living God." And so the better question always drives towards a more specific answer. So I would say humility and hunger.
Love it. I love it. And you just answered what was in my mind for the next question. And I'm thankful for that. And that is how to go about it. Like, is it mentor-led, mentee-led? And I'm hearing you say it's a combination of both. But I guess I can't even think of the word. This is what I get for recording late in the day on the East Coast. But the hallmark, there's that word, the hallmark of it is the intentionality that both parties bring, so that it isn't just that general conversation. Something that
So
go ahead.
I could interrupt though. One of the things that we want to be careful about is, what role are you asking me to play as a mentor? I just had this conversation with my wife the other night. She's a business owner, and she asked me a business-related question, Ron. And I've been married long enough not to fall into this trap of assuming the response she's looking for. So I said, "Honey, are you asking me to be a truth teller or a tank filler?" I can give you my candid assessment of the situation, or if you really just want me to encourage you on the path that you think you want to take, I'm glad to do that too. I can be a great cheerleader, but what role are you asking me to play? And Susan, I think that's really important in some mentoring relationships is, you get, the old saying, if you're a hammer, everything looks like a nail. I mean, there's been some mentors that are like, "I'll fix you. I'll tell you what's wrong with you. I'll make you better." Back in the day, there's a time for that, but it's not every time, and it's certainly not all the time. So finding the role sometimes can be really helpful.
And not only in general, but I think in a specific conversation, like in the example with your wife, because we don't know. And if there's any kind of formality around that conversation in a mentoring type capacity, identifying what the person needs in the moment or in that day is very helpful.
Yeah.
Thanks for saying that.
So as we begin to head towards the close of today, I want to reiterate that mentoring isn't something that should be only reserved for a select few. And each of us face just a myriad of struggles and obstacles in our lives. And having a mentor is a game changer. It can just provide tremendous help in navigating our way through whatever problems we're facing, whether it's health challenges, relational difficulties with our spouses, with our parents, with our kids, career struggles, financial pressures. A trusted, godly mentor can be a tremendous support in providing encouragement and challenging us to really ground every choice in biblical truth.
Yes.
Another part of this topic is, and I don't want us to leave this part out, it's in something that Susan and I talk a lot about, and it's about the other side of this. It's about being a mentor. Mm-hmm. And we've spoken a lot about the need for and benefits of being mentored and how to establish such a relationship, but that's only kind of half of the equation, in my opinion. There today is a great need for godly and wise men and women to make themselves available to mentor others. Lyle, how would you encourage this group, and in what ways could they initiate a mentoring relationship with someone who maybe is a little too quiet or hesitant?
Yeah. Well, the first thing I would say, Ron, is this. A little encouragement can go a really long way. I think sometimes, as the pastor of a church and encouraging people in our congregation to get engaged and to mentor, it can feel a little daunting. We're all busy and people are like, I don't have time. I mean, I can't sit with somebody 90 minutes every week. You know what? It could be 30 minutes twice a month, just a semi-quick cup of coffee, just a check-in, a couple of really deep questions, just making sure that that person feels seen, that they feel heard, that they feel encouraged. So it's surprising how little of an investment can matter. You think about it. I teach the most valued commodity we give another human being is our full attention. You look at the Gospels, Jesus knelt, Jesus touched, Jesus wept, Jesus stared. Our full attention is a great gift. And so for those that are listening that are pondering becoming a mentor, I would say three things. Number one, ask your pastor. Is there somebody at this church that I could walk alongside? Is there somebody that you've been counseling that may need a friend in this season? I do it all the time. I do pastoral counseling, and then I'm like, hey, I'd love you to meet this person. I think you guys could really go on a journey for, the next few months together. So ask your pastor. Number two, just look around you. I mean, Ron, you did this. I know you see somebody, they're working in the warehouse, but there's something unique about them. There's a joy, or there's a spirit of persistence or grit. And you're like, man, I think that kid with the right direction, if we get him or her on the right trajectory, man, look out. And then the last thing I would say is nearly every community has a nonprofit or a program where they arrange for adults to mentor young people. I mean, Ron, I'm sure you've mentored young entrepreneurs. You've been such a great entrepreneur yourself, but just check in with your public school system and just see. And, I did that intentionally as a college basketball coach. When my guys got into their junior and senior year, whatever they were majoring in, I made sure that I connected them with somebody in that profession. And that was just priceless experience for those young guys. So those would be a few places that I'd start if I really wanted to lean into it. And again, you don't have to have a PhD. You don't have to have a counseling degree. You just got to have a little bit of time and the right heart, and you'll make a massive difference.
Good encouragement. Ron, is there anything else you would like to add before I wrap us up?
Oh boy, I see if I can hold Lyle for another couple hours here. This is
good stuff.
Yeah, I like what you just said. And I think even many of us, or most of us, might lean towards the side of maybe being intimidated of thinking of themselves as a mentor or as a coach. And especially, you listen to someone like you who's done it their whole lives and you're like, oh, I could never, be what Lyle is. And it's really not only is it not a competition like that, but it's as you start to prioritize wanting to be a mentor and you start small, you start to learn yourself and you start to grow. And I say this a lot to the young folks or the older folks that I'm in a mentoring relationship with. I think I often get more out of it than they do.
Okay.
And also sometimes they present me with a problem and I don't know, I don't have the answer. It's like, I don't feel obligated that I have to have the answer. I could just say, this is a rough one. Let me think about it or pray about it, or I'm going to see if I can think of someone else who maybe could come alongside and give you more help than what I could offer. But it's being there for someone that it's critical. I don't think there's a lot of other things that we can do that are more satisfying and meaningful than helping someone walk through difficulties in their lives.
Ron, and to encourage those out there that are thinking, what if I don't have the answer? I don't know is a very appropriate answer. But here's the beauty of saying, I don't know, because you're also saying, but I'm going to walk through it with you. We'll figure it out together. At the end of season 1 of Ted Lasso, the soccer team loses and they're going to be relegated and everybody's devastated in the locker room. I mean, it's just, profound sadness. And Ted Lasso says there's one thing worse than being sad, and that's being sad and being alone. Mm-hmm. And we're all sad here tonight, but none of us are alone. And I just love that. I mean, I probably watch that twice a month just to remind me that, you know what, I don't have all the answers. I don't know how to grow everybody's business or help fix everybody's church. But here's what I can do. I can show up. I can be there for you. I can pray for you. I can walk with you. I can encourage you. I can laugh with you and I can cry with you. And sometimes that's more than enough. So, Ron, thanks for that. That was beautiful.
That is. And I want to segue on what you just said, Lyle, because there are a couple of verses that I had pulled out that really just reinforce what you said. And it is from scripture that is our best encouragement, because Ecclesiastes 4:9 tells us 2 are better than 1. 2 Corinthians 1:4 talks about comforting those in trouble with the comfort we ourselves have received from God. So as you just said, it is not God's plan that we do life alone. And so for that reason, we have wanted to talk about this topic. And Lyle, thank you so much for joining us today and sharing such practical tools and tips on how to both be mentored and be a mentor. So
sure. Thank you.
Thank you. You also pointed earlier about ways to get connected, and you were specifically talking about it in terms of a way to find someone to mentor. But the focus is the body of Christ, and it is within this community that we can bless and be blessed as we come alongside one another to encourage them. And we want to do it all with those first 2 commandments: love God and love others well. And that is going to reflect the Lord's glory, which is what we want a watching world to see. So, one last bit of encouragement. Please don't allow the pride of self-sufficiency or the lie of everyone is too busy to keep you from seeking out someone who's able and willing to come alongside and help you navigate the issues in your life. And for those who have navigated a lot of issues and desire to love God by loving others, would you purpose to come alongside someone else to encourage them to find God's comfort and learning in their own lives? We so appreciate your listening today and invite you to come back next week as we hear from a clinical psychologist on how to overcome rejection. Thank you for tuning in to this episode of the Q4 Impact Podcast. To continue receiving encouragement and practical tips on how to live with purpose and meaning through the many changes and challenges of life, please be sure to subscribe. And please share it with others you think may also benefit.